Hello, my friends. LaRuffa here with another Straight Up Solo. And in this episode, I want to give you my top 10 most amazing, essential solo games to date as of middle of 2024. I did one of these I did a video like this a few years ago. It's time to update it because lots of things have changed, in my opinion, as far as how to get the best of the best and get a well-rounded solo collection to start, okay? Now, to make things clear, this is not my top 10 of all time, whatever, because some games I like and I've like packed genres full. But these games, I think, are the best of each of the genres I'm talking about here from a solo standpoint, and they are just unbelievably good. So let's start with the first timeless classic that's been out for years now, and this game is going to kind of bring you into the Euro hobby with a serious amount of pain and perhaps clever misery. And I will say and that sounds funny, but you'll know when I bring it out. It's Agria. This game is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. It is a masterpiece of European gameplay. It is the first main game, I would say, besides, the designer did a couple of other games for sure, and they were big hits, right, before this, but this one, Agria, really, I think, put him on the map. This game is a game about farming. It's a game about trying to feed people. It's a worker placement game, but it's also a game where if you don't take the actions that are on the board, many of them continue to fill up and get better and better and better. And I think that is the most cool mechanic that I had seen at the time. It was mind-blowing. You can play that game solo. You can play it as a campaign solo. It is a fantastic game. If you haven't played it or you're new to the hobby, I highly recommend it. I should also say that all these games are pretty heavy, okay? These aren't my top 10 light games. I have a video on that from a while ago. These games take some doing, but if you're willing to put in the effort, you will get an amazing experience out of all of them. So let's say, okay, that's great. I've experienced the Euro, but I want something a little bit more American, so to speak. I want something with a little bit more atmosphere, a little bit more grit and story behind it. Well, I would then put out Arkham Horror, the 3rd edition, or the 2nd edition if you like that. I've never played the 2nd edition. But you can play pretty much anything in the Arkham Horror series, whether it's Arkham Horror or Eldritch Horror. Either of those games are really, really good. The reason I like Arkham Horror the best, especially the 3rd edition, is because it combines all of the best parts of all of the different games that they've put out in the Arkham series and brings them into one. It gives you a really rich narrative. The whole atmosphere, I should say, is really important. So each game in Arkham Horror will have a scenario where you have a map set up. There's a variable board that allows you to move around with characters, roll dice. You do a lot of dice checks in that game, so it's more American-like. And you're basically trying to overcome whatever eldritch horror is in the game. It's very fun, it's very thematic, it's very atmospheric, and one that's really fun to play, whether you play solo with 2 characters or a multitude of different people. I love Arkham Horror, what it does, and the expansions make it even better. There's a lot to love there. But if you are one that you're like, oh no, the 2nd edition, I'm not going to argue with that. I just happen to like the 3rd edition a lot. So that is a good game to check out. Let's say, though, you say, well, all right, what's this deck building thing that I've heard about? And I kind of like civilization-themed games. I like customization, and I also like asymmetry in my games. Well, you'll have to look no further than Imperium Horizons. This game is an amazing civilization-style game that is completely based on a deck of cards that you're going to have. And this game comes with 16 different cultures that you can play. And each of the cultures plays very differently from one another. Each of them also has a different feeling AI from one another. An extremely rich solo experience that if you like deck building, if you like card games, if you like the civilization theme and it's kind of building up an empire and doing things. Imperium Horizons has it all. Now, Imperium Legends and Imperium Classics came before it. Those are really good too, but Horizons has the best rule book. It has multiple modes to play from a solo standpoint to ease you into the game. It also contains the trade route mechanic, which is not found in the other ones, but can be brought into the other ones by this. So I think this is the best place to start, and you could always get the other ones if you wanted to add more variety and more content to your situation. But Imperium Horizons, fantastic game. Now, if you say to yourself, well, that's cool and all, but I love dice. What do you got for me that has some dice usage? Well, I would say Tanu Obelisk of the Sun is truly where it's at. This game here has an amazing dice drafting mechanic that allows you to take basically one of 6 styles of actions, and you are doing so many cool things in this game with regards to how to score, how to invest your time. There's ways that you can do things on the board to score. There's cards you can get that make your stuff better. There's things you can build up. There's all sorts of really good European awesomeness in this box. And if you get the expansion, it's even better, I think. The expansion really helps it out. Let's see if I have the expansion rulebook in here. Oh, it's buried. But the expansion really helps it out. In fact, that it makes it even more fun. This is the Time of Seth. If you can get this expansion with it, it takes everything about the game and just completely fills it out, flushes it out. Such a good game. Now, there is a unique aspect to this game, and it is one that is a little bit tougher to play from the solo standpoint, only because the solo bot does different actions than you do in such a way. So this one does take some work, but I promise you, it is a gem of a game, very fun, and very worth your time and effort. And it has a dice drafting mechanism where you are going to pick a die that's in this board, and depending on where the sun is going, whether it's in shadow or sun or darkness or whatever the situation is, it changes the effects of the die. Really, really cool, really novel and unique. I love it. All right, but let's say you say, hey, I would like to try one of these roll and write games. There's a ton of them out there. There's tons of them solo. Which one should I go for? What's the best one? Well, I don't know exactly what the best one is, but I can tell you what an amazing one is, and that is Twilight Inscription. This game from a solo standpoint and from a roll and write is just fantastic. First of all, doesn't that just look awesome and fun? Look at that thing. I mean, this is an amazing game. So what this game does is you have 4 different sectors, and the game comes with basically 8 maps that you can play with different sectors. You can mix and match them. They have an A side and a B side. The A side's all the same. The B sides are all different. And that means that you can put together so many different combinations of boards to try out. But the game is a roll and write. You are either expanding where you're like exploring, you're focusing on military, you're focusing on planet exploration and kind of exploitation, or you've got your industry track. Really, really, really cool game. Very fun. And probably my favorite roll and write of all time. It says the epic roll and write experience. I agree with it. It is an epic game. I love it. Now, it is not like Twilight Imperium. I've never even played Twilight Imperium, but I know it's not like that. It's a whole different beast on its own, but it's definitely worth your time, especially if you want to try out a roll and write style game. You will really like that. Now, what if you say to yourself, all right, I like that, I hear that, but give me something that has just a sandboxy feel. I want to explore all sorts of things. I want to be able to do all sorts of stuff. I want to be able to try all sorts of options. Well, let me tell you what that is. That is A Feast for Odin from Uwe Rosenberg. This game is probably one of my favorite games of all time, and when you put in the expansion with it, the Norwegian expansion, it is even better. I won't even show you the back of the box much because it doesn't really even do it justice. But the back of the box kind of shows you just a little bit of what's going on in here. This game has like 52 different actions you can play your guys on. Just so many different things. The actions are in different categories. There are different strengths. There's a ton of different cards that give you little nuances that change things. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to hoard all this treasure and put it back on your board in such a way where all of it fits together in a very Tetris-y style spatial puzzle aspect. And it is just so good. You can play it over and over and over. You can try different strategies. You can try different things. You can try all sorts of stuff. And again, the Norwegian expansion makes the solo even better. And they also have smaller little expansions you can add to it, which is really good too and just fantastic. So A Feast for Odin is one of those sandbox games that I think is top notch. And I would love it if there were more out there like that. I've never found one quite as good, unfortunately. But it's awesome. Awesome game. Now, what if you say, all right, I love the European mechanic. I want to double down on this whole European thing. I really want to get a really good Euro-style game that gives me ways to kind of put things together for asymmetric starts and has this idea where if I can play one thing and unlock certain things, I play other things and unlocks other things. Well, I will tell you what, Age of Innovation is what you are looking for. In this game, boy, do I have every box top upside down? In this game, you can take all of these different races, put them together and with different powers and different things and customize a very unique asymmetric start. In addition, it takes the best things about, in my opinion, about Terra Mystica and the Gaia project, and it melts them together and makes it even better. It's got a tech tree. It's got some error majority. It's got board placement. It's got when you build things, you unlock certain things in your board, so your income gets better. It is a masterpiece of a game. One of my all-time favorite Euros ever. And it has so much replayability because the AI is different depending on which race they play. It's just super fun. And there's so much customizability in that box because there's a bunch of different races and you kind of put them together separately in different configurations. And it makes for an amazing experience. But what if you're like, well, I really want to see something industrial. Give me something with an industrial feel, and I like power, and I like board presence, and I like making sure I can supply this with that, etc., etc. And oh, by the way, give me some really cool different actions and route building and things like that to connect cities. Well, I'll tell you what, you get your hands on Nucleum, and you're going to have everything you want. Nucleum is an amazing industrial game. This game takes what was strong in games like Brass and, let's see what else, Barrage, perhaps, other games with power and industry feels, and it makes it even better. You play these action tiles that will do certain things if you play them in certain areas and other things if you play them in other areas. You build network with those action tiles. You get more action tiles that have different flavors of different things you can do. And you're trying to build up your industry, build up mines, build up power plants, access to power plants so that you can power your buildings, flip them over, score points, and then compete for varying goals every game, unlock variable technologies. There are expansions for it. The Australia expansion is fantastic. I can't wait for the other expansion to come out pretty soon. It's going to have more technical or tech trees and research in it. That's going to be awesome. Just a great game for those of you who like industry themes. Love myself some Nucleum. The AI is very challenging, but it's not too bad to run. It puts up a heck of a fight, and it's extremely fun to play from a solo aspect. What if you say to yourself, oh, that's awesome, but I want to try something a little bit more in the pick up and deliver and network building aspect. I really want to get into that. Well, I'll tell you what, I've played a ton of pick up and delivers and a ton of network building games, and I can't find a better one for my tastes from a solo standpoint than Mistwind. This game right here was a sleeper hit for me that I did not expect to like as much as I actually did. I like the idea of pick up and deliver. I like the idea of network building. But for whatever reason, it always either becomes too simplistic or too much of a slog for me depending on what you're doing. This game makes it perfect. It just hits everything right. It's got a variable demand that comes and goes. It's got cities where you want to build networks. It's got cards that fulfill different configurations of networks. It has variable action spaces that you take and you can block other people from doing it. Just all sorts of really cool pick up and deliver mechanisms and network building mechanisms, and that's really fun to play and extremely easy to play from a solo standpoint. Now, In that one, you're playing against 3 automas, but there really aren't automas so much. They basically take tiles for majorities and block your action spaces. You're trying to compete against an easy, a medium, and a hard difficulty level. So it's a little bit different, but it works surprisingly well without a ton of overhead and all the other things that would bog down a pick up and deliver, in my opinion, from a solo game standpoint. So Mistwind is definitely worth you checking out. Well, let's say you say, John, I want the cream of the crop. I want the top of the line. I want the game that's going to blow my mind from a solo standpoint that will just trounce everything else that you've ever played. What is that? What is your favorite game? What is the game that really just left you baffled about how a game could be so good? I have the game for you. And I really hope you try it. I really hope you can get your hands on it. And that is this gigantic, big juggernaut of a game called Voidfall. Voidfall, and I can't even really, I don't know if I can really show this on camera, to be honest, because it doesn't even make sense when you look at it like that. But Voidfall is by far, in my opinion, the best, most complicated, but most worthwhile, I shouldn't say complicated, because it is complicated, but it's not the most complicated. Worthwhile 4X European game I've ever played in my life. It is amazing. There is so much content in that box. There are so many different races. There are so many ways you can play it. There's so many scenarios, so much board, so many ways you can set up, so many ways you can do technology, so many ways you can attack the puzzle that constantly pushes pressure on you throughout the game. It is not an easy game to learn, but it is not that tough of a game to execute when you get playing it. Once you understand it, it does have the longest setup time of almost any game I have behind me. That's the tough thing. It does take some time to understand it. The rulebook, as it kind of teaches it from a competitive side. So when you're playing solo, it's a little confusing. But once you play it once and get into it, it is so worth it. Now, you don't have to get the most deluxe version with the little miniatures and stuff to experience the fullness. I ended up kickstarting this a long time ago, so that's the one I got. But I would encourage any way, shape, or form, if you can find a copy of this, you should get it. It is so good. And there is so much replayability in it there. I think there's 12 different races, and there's something like 8 or more solo scenarios. And each scenario can be played on easy, medium, or hard difficulty. Plus, there's co-op scenarios if you really wanted to play, two-handed. And obviously, we're talking solo, so you're not going to play competitively. But just an unbelievable game with an amazing solo mode and a fantastic experience. You cannot do better, in my opinion, than Voidfall if you're willing to put in the effort and the time. Now, there are a ton of games that I love. And it was hard to get these 10, okay? But I think if you were to get these 10 games, you would cover off on all sorts of different arenas and styles and things from a solo standpoint that would really get you going in a collection to say, man, do I have a lot of stuff to explore here. Now, yes, there are mechanics I didn't cover. There are things that I could have put in. There's a ton of games I love a lot, but I wanted to try to branch out in all these different directions so that if you're seeing this video and you're just getting into the hobby, you can see, look at these spokes of excellence. And if I try these different things, I can get a different experience from each of these games, and it will be very rewarding and very interesting. So I really hope that this video helps you to learn about some of my absolute favorites, but also how to get a well-rounded and mind-blowing solo collection. Yes, it's very Euro-focused, but that's the kind of games I like, so I'm going to tell you about them. Yes, these are heavier. Not all of them are super heavy, but some of them are. And that's because I think richness doesn't necessarily go with complication, but sometimes you need a heavy game or you need a game with a lot going on to really have it blow your mind. All of these games are deeply rewarding and deeply fun, in my opinion. And I hope that while watching this, you will see some things you haven't heard about, or you can agree with me on some things. And maybe there's games out there you're like, oh, you missed one of my all-time favorites. And for that, I apologize. And you could share them in the comments with everybody. Absolutely. Again, I got all sorts of games that I really like behind me, but these are my picks for the top 10 essential, mind-blowing solo games that are current as of 2024. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope this was an informational video for you and you enjoyed it. And as I always say, whatever you do in the future, please enjoy doing it. Have a good time.